In 2003, in an unprecedented operation in the rainforests of Borneo, Indonesia, a special police force of 35 heavily armed officers quietly entered a remote village, hundreds of kilometers away from the civilized world. The operation was large-scale and highly tense, with both sides in a fierce standoff over a single goal, a female orangutan. Her name was Pony, a Bornean orangutan, a species on the brink of extinction. Pony had been kidnapped from her family at the age of 2. She was shaved bald, sprayed with cheap perfume, made up like a and chained to the corner of a bed for 6 years. Pony wasn't trained to perform circus tricks or ride a bicycle like some other orangutans. Instead, she was forced to learn human behaviors. Her clients were poor, desperate men who couldn't afford much, so they paid a meager price to engage with Pony. What happened to this orangutan will undoubtedly keep you awake all night. The story was recorded by the Borneo Orangutan Survival Foundation and international media outlets. What happened to Pony was a horrific stain in human history, one that had been forgotten by the world for a long time. What makes this even more haunting is that the villagers were fully aware of what was happening, and they viewed Pony as a lucky charm, a money-making commodity. You won't believe what the police had to do to rescue the orangutan from this real-life hell. Karangpangi is a small, remote village deep within the Borneo jungle in Kalimantan, where human life and nature intersect in strange ways. There is no electricity, paved roads, or modern amenities like we're used to. Instead, there are makeshift wooden houses, dirt paths, and the constant sounds of jungle birds day and night. However, this small village hides a terrifying secret that few could ever imagine. Amidst the crooked wooden houses covered in red dust, there exists the world's strangest house of ill repute, where there is not a single woman in sight. Instead, the staff of this establishment is a female orangutan named Pony. This primate, which should have lived freely in the deep jungle, was confined to a dark room and forced to serve the needs of the village's men, ranging from elderly men to young unmarried men. You can experience an unprecedented thrill for just $3. That was the advertisement posted in front of the establishment, enticing the villagers and even workers from afar. Below the sign was a photo of a red-haired orangutan holding a lipstick. The operators of this service were shameless, with no hesitation or guilt. For them, Pony was just a tool, a bizarre toy for those who couldn't afford a normal brothel. Strangely, the villagers supported this practice, turning a blind eye, considering it normal. Unlike any wild orangutan, Pony no longer had a thick, smooth coat of fur. Instead, her skin was bare, scaly, and scarred from frequent shaving. Every day, her owner, referred to by the villagers as Pony's foster mother, would shave off all her natural fur, then spray her with strong perfume, paint her lips red, and adorn her with earrings and necklaces. Pony was transformed into a girl, ready to serve anyone for only $3, and the customers came. Initially, just a few curious individuals, but word of mouth spread, and Pony became a local phenomenon. People came in greater numbers. Pony was forced to serve multiple customers a day, with no rest or freedom. Poor men, palm oil workers, and day laborers who couldn't afford normal services turned to Pony. Even worse, the villagers supported these actions, believing that by using this service, they could ward off evil spirits and protect themselves from bad luck. And most importantly, it was a way to make money. The room where Pony was locked up was just a small corner of a rickety wooden house, with no natural light, no fresh air. She was shackled to the wall for 6 years, lying on a filthy mattress, deprived of proper food, hygiene, or care. She could neither escape nor resist. She could only endure. The frequent shaving caused Pony's skin to become infected. Unlike humans, orangutans need thick fur to keep warm and protect themselves from bacteria. But Pony was never allowed to live as an actual orangutan. Without her fur to protect her, Pony became an easy target for mosquitoes, insects, and parasites in the unsanitary conditions of the brothel. Every day, hundreds of bites marked her skin, causing swelling and severe necrosis. But what haunted people the most was when Pony began scratching her own body with her nails, not to relieve itching, but to escape the unendurable, persistent pain. 6 years passed, and Pony lived like a breathing corpse. She wasn't cared for, treated, or loved. Pony was just an animal in a cage, painted with makeup, and sent out to serve the darkest instincts of men. In the dense tropical forests of Indonesia, amidst lush vegetation and the wild sounds of nature, existed a rich ecosystem where humans and wildlife once lived in balance. Orangutans, intelligent primates, known as the people of the forest, were an important part of that ecological picture. When Pony was young, she lived with her mother in that forest. However, human greed escalated. They began chopping down the forest to plant crops, clearing the very forest that was Pony's home, forcing her family to flee. Pony's mother was killed, and she was captured and sold. The person who bought Pony was a local woman. She didn't purchase Pony as a pet, but to carry out a cruel plan. She locked Pony in a dark room, shaved her fur, made her up, and trained her harshly, forcing Pony to serve every customer's needs. At the time of her capture, Pony was only a few weeks old. In the wild, orangutans stay with their mothers for 7 to 11 years. The experience became a severe psychological trauma for Pony. Pony could have grown up in the jungle, climbing trees, living a wild and free life. But her fate changed forever the moment she was separated from her mother. She didn't die, but Pony lost all essence of what it meant to be a living creature. Initially, Pony resisted fiercely, but every time she opposed, she was beaten with a whip or starved. Over time, she stopped resisting and became docile. Soon after, the woman began leading Pony out to greet customers with suggestive words, and after the harsh training, Pony learned to serve customers proficiently. At first, only a few regular customers came after hearing about the special service. Many local farm workers deliberately visited as they believed that being with an orangutan felt new and exciting, and they were willing to pay for that experience. Pony's foster mother made a fortune, and soon the villagers joined in. They offered services like guiding customers, maintaining order, all for a fee. Thanks to Pony, her foster mother was counting money all day long, and the entire village became rich. Greed clouded their judgment, and the villagers began to view Pony as a good luck charm, a source of prosperity for the community. However, light began to shine at the end of the tunnel. An orangutan rescue organization in Indonesia received a secret tip from locals. After months of covert investigation, they decided to launch a large-scale raid. But would Pony be freed easily? The rescue mission turned into a tense, heart-stopping story that lasted every second. Stay tuned for the next part. As Pony's reputation spread, a local animal protection organization began hearing disturbing rumors about a female orangutan trapped in a remote village, being made up and serving as a plaything every day. At first, they were skeptical. But after only a few days of investigation, the cryptic accounts from local traders and a few strangers passing through the area sent chills down their spines. Unable to stay idle, the organization decided to send a covert team to the village. 3 rescue organization employees, 2 men and 1 woman, disguised themselves as hunters and arrived in the village, claiming they wanted to experience the special service the area was rumored to offer. They were led to a damp house deep in the forest, where a foul odor wafted from a sealed room. When the door was opened, a sight appeared that left them speechless. In the middle of the musty room stood an orangutan with unsettling makeup. It was completely bald, shackled by one arm to a rusty iron frame. Its face was smeared with pale white makeup. Its eyes were hollow, and cheap plastic earrings hung from its ears, while a fake necklace adorned its neck. Its emaciated body was covered with sores and ulcers from infection. As one of the men stepped inside, Pony immediately stood up, turned its back, and hunched over instinctively. The 3 stood frozen, realizing that all the rumors were true, and even worse than they could have imagined. The woman in the group quickly recorded footage and took photos, while the 2 men struggled to suppress their anger. They knew that any rash action could result in Pony being killed immediately to destroy the evidence. At that moment, Pony's foster mother, the woman who had kept her for 6 years, came out to speak with them. She acted cheerfully, continuously making crude, suggestive comments as if this were the most normal thing in the world. Those around her, even a few children, laughed, unaware that they were witnessing a horrific crime. When the rescue team expressed their intent to free Pony and take her with them, the woman became enraged. She screamed, cried, and ran out to summon the villagers. Within moments, dozens of people arrived, surrounding the house. They carried sticks, rocks, and knives. No one would allow the rescue team to take the orangutan. They even called the rescuers vandals, thieves, and those trying to steal their good luck. In the eyes of the villagers, Pony wasn't an animal. It was their source of income. With no other option, the rescue team had to retreat. They took the evidence, photos, and videos with them, determined to return and rescue the poor orangutan at any cost. After months of undercover investigation, the Animal Protection Organization officially confirmed that this was one of the most brutal cases of animal cruelty ever recorded in Indonesia. They decided to launch a rescue operation. But things would not be as simple as they hoped. To the villagers, Pony was a money-making machine, a symbol of good fortune for the entire community. For 6 years, the village had lived off Pony's exploitation. It was a special service that outsiders whispered about, a profitable enterprise for those unwilling to work but eager to get rich. Thus, Pony had become a taboo that no one was allowed to touch. On the day the rescue team returned with specialized vehicles, transport cages, and a medical team, they faced fierce resistance. Dozens of villagers blocked the entrance to the village. The villagers gathered in swarms, men, women, the elderly and youth alike, holding sticks, machetes, and even gasoline cans and lighters. Their eyes were filled with hostility, and their mouths never stopped yelling, cursing, and threatening. One middle-aged man even raised a gasoline can and shouted that he would set the whole village and the rescue team on fire if anyone dared to take Pony. The atmosphere was tense. The rescue team tried to stay calm, explaining Pony's severe condition, showing evidence, referring to animal protection laws, and appealing to humanity. But every argument was rejected. They called the rescue team rebels, troublemakers, and thieves trying to rob their village of the blessings the gods had given them. The standoff continued for weeks. Every day the rescue team showed up, and every day they were pushed back. They tried every method, from gentle persuasion to tough negotiations, offering financial support, contacting human rights organizations for indirect intervention, but nothing worked. Finally, the rescue team had no choice but to call on the local authorities. After reviewing the case, the Indonesian government agreed to support the rescue operation, but with strict conditions. The team had to avoid injuring any civilians, and only use firearms if directly attacked with lethal weapons. A few days later, 35 armed police officers, fully equipped, entered the village from 3 directions. Each carried an AK-47, bulletproof vests, and protective helmets. They moved silently through the morning mist, hoping to reach Pony's captivity before the villagers could react. But their plan was quickly exposed. Within minutes, the entire village erupted in chaos. The bells rang, people screamed, children cried, and dogs barked loudly. The villagers rushed out from every alley armed with sticks, hose, knives, and bricks. Some even dared to block the police vehicles, holding knives to their wrists, shouting, "If you want to take it, kill me first." The scene was absolute chaos. Even though the police were armed, they didn't dare to act aggressively. They raised their weapons, but only to warn, without firing a single shot. The rescue team stood behind the security lines, hearts pounding. Meanwhile, a small team assigned to raid quickly sneaked into the back of the house where Pony was kept. They broke open the door with a crowbar and rushed in amidst the growing clamor. And then, before them, stood Pony. Not in the fearful state they had expected, but a scene so painful it left them speechless. The orangutan didn't cry, didn't run, didn't resist. It quietly turned its back and started rocking gently, the only response it had been trained to make after years in captivity. The police quickly set up the transport cage and carefully carried Pony, now just skin and bones, out of the house. The rescue was successful, but the atmosphere remained tense. As Pony was brought out, the crowd screamed even louder. The woman who had kept Pony rushed forward and bit a police officer's hand, but was quickly subdued. Another group of young villagers tried to block the rescue team's path, but they were stopped by the security detail. It took nearly another hour before the convoy, under tight police escort, was able to leave the furious village, taking Pony to safety, a place where, for the first time in years, it had the chance to live as a true living being. After a difficult and dangerous rescue mission, Pony, the orangutan who had been turned into a plaything in a remote village in Indonesia, was finally freed. The rescue organization immediately transferred her to an animal sanctuary for medical checks and a psychological evaluation. What the experts discovered next was heartbreaking. Pony was not only weak and emaciated, but had also lost all basic survival skills. Skills that any adult orangutan in the wild would need to survive. She didn't know how to find food, didn't know how to climb trees, lacked defensive reflexes, and could barely interact with other orangutans. When interacting with the female rescue workers, Pony remained relatively calm and approachable. But when meeting male workers, her reactions were far more complex, sometimes trying to please, other times going into fits of rage, screaming, and becoming agitated. In the end, the rescue team decided to prevent any male staff from interacting with Pony to avoid further distress. Under the careful and loving care of the rescue team, Pony's physical wounds began to heal rapidly, but her emotional scars were not so easy to mend. Months later, the woman who had kept Pony as her adopted daughter for 6 years unexpectedly came to visit. Upon seeing this woman, Pony immediately panicked, screamed in pain, cried uncontrollably, and fled in terror, even losing control of her bodily functions. The scene was heartbreaking for everyone who witnessed it. The psychological trauma inflicted on Pony by humans may never be erased. Even 2 years after being rescued, Pony still couldn't learn to forage for food, nor would she socialize or interact with other orangutans. To ensure her survival, the sanctuary had to maintain complete artificial care, while closely monitoring her psychological state and slowly teaching her survival skills. After a long period, Pony finally began to emerge from the psychological darkness. She was no longer as fearful of men and began to learn to live independently. During this process, the rescue team attempted to release Pony back into the wild, hoping she could return to the jungle. However, each time she was released, Pony only lingered in the release area, unable to find shelter, climb trees, or pick fruit. If she got too hungry, she reverted to the behaviors she had been trained for, acting like a performer in front of humans, as if pleading for attention and food. Within a month, Pony had lost 15 kilograms, over 30 pounds, and the rescue team reluctantly brought her back to the sanctuary. The harsh truth was that, due to prolonged human abuse, Pony had lost all ability to survive in the wild. What was even more heartbreaking was that those who had tortured, imprisoned, and humiliated Pony faced no legal consequences, as the laws in Indonesia at that time did not specifically address such cruelty. Even the woman who forced Pony into servitude for 6 years was never held criminally responsible. What do you think about this story? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss other exciting content. See you soon.